Welcome everyone to the August 2024 Evergreen Cataloging Interest Group. And as always, on behalf of the organizing committee, I am Jennifer Weston, and we all welcome you to this meeting. Organizing committee members are listed at the top of our agenda as always. The document that we are using for our agenda will magically turn into the notes document as we continue to take notes throughout the meeting. We'll post this to the wiki, or Carol or I, one will post this to the wiki today so we can at least have access to the notes. And then when the recording is done, I will get that posted up to the wiki as well later this week. As I mentioned before we got started, I'm going to very, very briefly run through what is our usual kind of standing agenda items. I don't see any new names necessarily here, but if there are new names here, then you are so very, very welcome. We usually spend a little more time just kind of going through some community updates, but today I want to forego a bit of that so that we can have plenty of time to talk with Bill Erickson and Libby McLean from King County, because they have done some really great work with some of this authority's new headings report. And while this is important, is the authorities working group, and there are several of you here today that have been working on this, find this to be something that's going to be invaluable going forward. And our question that we are posing to the group today is, first of all, hey, do you like this? Your answer will be yes. But then it's going to be more about how does it work, and we're going to find out more about how King County is using it, and then talk as a community about, really about what it would take to go the next steps. And that's more of a larger community. How does anything go from an idea and something that one library is doing into being part of the larger Evergreen releases that are made available. So as I stumbled over that announcement, you tell I'm bouncing one meeting to the next. I'll just start back at the beginning, and we'll go through this agenda, and then in just a few minutes we'll get to Libby and Bill and ask them to do some quick introductions of themselves. So just a couple of quick updates here. The release teams have been on fire the last few months. There's been yet another release since the last time we talked. There was a release on July 19th, so I have linked to those so you can have the most up-to-date release notes on 313, 312, and 311. There wasn't a 310 release, but it's a stable release at this point. So we've got our notes about community demo servers. That's the same as last month, but since we did a great job, and thanks to those of you that helped collect that information last month, we're going to just leave that in part of our standing agenda items here, so that we can recognize the demo servers that are available, and to those of you that are making those available to us. We've also got a link to the development roadmap. One thing I want to highlight out of the development roadmap is that we have Bug Squashing Week coming up in August, the last week of the August. That's this month. Woo! A week and a half, Bug Squashing Week. Yes, woohoo! So we'll watch that carefully as Taryn starts putting together all the materials to share out about Bug Squashing Week, so that we can participate as usual. And we will follow the specific pieces that are involved in that have cataloging, a relation to cataloging in the Bug Squashing Week. As you see, it includes Angular buckets. So woohoo! We're definitely going to have opinions, and we would definitely want to test on that.
Oh, nice.
I know I can't. So I'm getting ahead of myself. I have a thought about Bug Squashing Week, but I'm going to just let that be part of the celebration here for now. And then if there's time at the end, I want to talk a little about how we might just set aside some time just to have an open channel like this to talk during Bug Squashing Week. So if anybody just wants to set aside some working time to do some bug squashing, we could do that together without any formal agenda. Just working.
And we can talk about buckets at that point too, if you'd like to.
I would love to do that very much. We would make an announcement about such thing and draw a crowd from near and far. Second celebration acknowledgement announcement is Hackaway is coming up in November. That's in person in Massachusetts. So I have a link there to all the information that's available about that. And so I'm going pretty quickly. If you haven't visited us in a while, we now have a cataloger's map about where we all are. It's anonymous other than our locations. It's just a Google map. Kind of a fun little thing we did a couple of months ago around the online conference. So if you're not on the list, try not to do that. Please add yourself to the list, and I will get you on the map. So here we are, the map of where our cataloging interest group is from. It's a nice big space here we need to fill in the middle of the country. But so it's a fun little thing. If your location isn't there, please add it to the map. And and I keep saying Carol. Carol has very nicely agreed to help with the wiki, and I cannot thank her enough for that. So I'm going to say that multiple times here because I'm thrilled to have somebody helping with the wiki. So we're going to get that updated on the wiki very soon. So get your name on the map. Not your name, get your location on the map because it's sort of anonymous in that not a name, just a place. Okay. As I'm continuing my whirlwind through the standing agenda items, this is where I do pause to ask if anybody wants to share if they have or are planning to upgrade anytime soon. So have you upgraded? Is there anything on this list that needs to be updated? Everyone should have access to edit this document. So if you just want to update your own information, that's great. If you want to drop a note in chat, I will make sure to grab it and update this as well. It's kind of just nice to hear how which libraries are using which versions, especially as this time of the year and as we're looking towards the fall tends to be a time that a lot of libraries do upgrade. So it's always kind of nice to see that and so that we can come back in and say, how did it go, NC Cardinal? Are you upgrading in November?
I did change Missouri Evergreen before the meeting started.
Thanks, Kate.
We upgrade in February to whatever 3.12 is going to be then.
Got it. Yep. Perfect. And I see Bill's note about King County's 311 for a bit longer. I am looking who is here from, just because I want to introduce you to the group, is from the North Carolina Community Colleges. If you have your mic on or you want to drop a note in chat, because I know you've been with us several times. We've had several representatives from that group, but you're still relatively new, and I would like for you to introduce yourself a little bit.
This is Charles Wiggins from Isothermal Community College. I'm part of NCCC Evergreen.
Hi, Charles. It's great to have you here. Did I get it right this time? NCCC, North Carolina Community Colleges, right?
Yeah, you got that perfectly right. Yeah, it's a mouthful regardless of which way you say.
Well, thank
But
you.
we couldn't come up with anything really clever like the Pines, so we did the best we could.
Well, in North Carolina, since you're the land, what is it? The land of the old. Oh, I'm going to get that wrong, and I live in North Carolina. That's terrible. Longleaf pine? What's our
Yeah, it's the longleaf pine.
the
Yeah,
longleaf pine? So they'd already stolen that from us, so we couldn't go anywhere.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't, we couldn't figure out a cool way to work the plot hound in, and Cardinal was already taken.
I
So
know. That's okay. You be you. That's the important thing, Charles. Well, thanks. I didn't want to call you out necessarily, but I know that a lot of us get to know the others just from hanging around and having conversations and interacting. So thank you for being here. Anybody else relatively new that wants to say hello? Or I'm not going to call anybody else out today. I know from time to time I do that. I do it more than once in a day. But if you want to, say hello and drop a note in the chat. And Ava, you're here from the Czech Republic. Always so lovely to have you.
I'm glad to be here. And I have a very good news because we are now working on upgrade from 3.6 to 3.13, which is great success of the whole African community because there were big problems with localization and we waited for a long time, but now it's excellent and we are looking forward to see it. Thank you all for your help.
Thank you for making that happen. Because without you, that would not be happening. You keep asking the right questions to the right people and providing the right information. Oh, that's so exciting. What a big jump for you, too, from 3.6 to 3.13. So in September, we'll be celebrating you that it's done. Fabulous. Okay. Just going to bask in that for a moment. That's lovely. Okay, moving back to our calendar then. Not going to go through all the dates. And at some point, I guess I'll stop putting these on the agenda, but it's just habit at this point because we do have a unified community calendar and you can see all of these meetings now all in one place. If you go to the Unified Community Calendar, which is also on the wiki and also on the Evergreen website, with the new design to the website, the new theme. Get that correctly here. Thanks to Stephanie, who's here. We celebrated you last month, Stephanie, about the new theme on the website and the outreach group. So if there's anything anybody wants to make any particular announcement about, or if there are any corrections that need to be made to the meeting dates, please just try to post a note in chat or say so. I highlighted bug squashing, and then I got ahead of myself saying that I think I'd like to just schedule some time during that week to work together. So I'll put out maybe a poll and see when we're available that week to just put aside some let's all squash bugs together time during that week. Especially because we just want to see angular buckets. Ruth, if we do that, I'm looking at Ruth and Andrea right after I said I wasn't going to call anybody else out. If we could talk about buckets that week.
We can talk about it a little bit. It's going to still be in testing at that point, internal testing or partner testing. But one thing that we will say is that it will be ready for catalogers to look at during Feedback Fest.
Got it.
And I would encourage you to do that during Feedback Fest. The bugs themselves will mostly be squashed at that point, but there will definitely it will be fun, I guess is a good way to say it. Fun and maybe frustrating at times as new development is, but also mostly just exciting.
Yes, it is.
Really. And there will be documentation at that point too, which will also need to be reviewed, and so that we can have solid documentation that goes, which it will be pretty solid anyway, but then also collaborative review of that, so that when 3.14 comes out, we're hoping that can Angular buckets can be included in that. It's not just Angular buckets administration and bibliographic buttons are what are being done right now. So this does not include item or copy buckets right now or user buckets, but it is the foundational work that will go into all of the buckets interfaces. And I will say too, because I'm very excited about there's integration between bib buckets, which I'm calling them now because record buckets, everything has records in it. Anyway. Thank you.
Yes, finally.
Okay. So I'm just going to keep doing that then, now that you just like validated me. So integration with the reporter, so that there is the ability to go from report output of things directly into bibliographic record buckets, and then also more integration in the staff catalog as well, which we're excited about both of those things. And the administration is going to be a whole new world. So in terms of bucket sharing. And there's more, like I keep forgetting, I need to look at this because there's more than it.
There should always be more.
It is very exciting. Okay, I'll hush again.
No, I appreciate that so much. Okay, so I've added Feedback Fest to our list. So October 7th through the 10th, according to the roadmap.
And we're trying real hard to stay right on schedule with the roadmap too. So
it's been so impressive.
And also there is going to, hopefully, this is always with a wing and a prayer, be point releases that come out next week for version 3.13.3 and 3.12.6.
Can you give me the point release numbers one more time?
Yes, 3.13.3 and 3.1216. No, just 6.6. I was looking at a 1. Of course, I had to say it out loud.
Look how close we are. I'm not going to.
And there will not be a point release for 3.11 anymore unless there's security releases, because of the way that we do maintenance for those. So
that's fine. Yep. Marvelous. Okay, so we'll look for those next week. Something else we could talk about bug squashing week if we wanted to. Okay. Just if we need extra meetings. I am just a bit irrationally excited about getting together at Bug Squashing Week. I haven't been able to participate too much later, so I just want to do it with all of you. Okay. So back to the calendar then. Bug Squashing Week we have on there. All of these, look at this list. It just keeps growing. It's fabulous. All these different interest groups and working groups. I'll say the Bib Frame Study Group. We talked with Galen. Well, now it's been a month ago, but about doing some initial conversations again to kind of restart that, as we will start collecting resources to share again, is where we started originally a year or so ago about the Bib Frame Study Group, and that's where we would want to pick back up. So thanks to those of you that have sent a note saying that you would be interested. It's most definitely never too late if you'd like to be interested in those preliminary conversations about what a Bib Frame Study Group could be. It's really about learning more and just having discussions about linked data and Bib Frame in general, and then where we kind of go from there and what that means for modern cataloging, really. But so anyway, if you want to join that, coming soon, there's the list that you can come. Okay, I think that's it for my little business pieces, unless there are more announcements, which we should just take time and see what's going on in your libraries. Anything you want to put on the list before our program? Not. Libby, I turn over the reins to you?
Okay.
And would you please introduce yourself, my friend, as I
Okay.
figure out how to do this?
Hi, I'm Libby McLean, and I'm a cataloging librarian at King County Library System here in Issaquah, Washington. And today I'm in our greenhouse room with a great big screen in front of us, and I'm joined by Jennifer Barrett, who's a cataloging librarian, and Kelly Anziella. It's one of our LT3s. And and then others of us are joining in from different parts of the building. So anyway,
and I think I just made you host.
I'm the host, so let's see if this works. Okay. Now, can you see my screen?
I can, yes.
Yes.
Okay. So yes, we should be looking at the Evergreen homepage. And I wanted to show you where we find the new headings report in the administration menu. And it's under server administration. And then the new headings report is here. And I can make that. Wait, okay. So we have a date picker here and here, so we can start date, end date. And it by default, it will go 1 day back. So if I set it here, it's going to run the report on everything that was cataloged yesterday. And so that's kind of how the date picker works. If you're running it for like the previous Friday, then you kind of have to go back and select the Friday if you're on Monday. So nobody's working on the weekends. We also can exclude editors. I don't do this very much anymore because of some of the changes we've made, but if I wanted to say I don't want basically order records from some of our acquisitions folks, I could choose them and I just start typing like their username and then I could pick them up from the list. But as I say, I don't really use this feature at all. Yeah. The other thing that we can exclude are Overdrive records. We get records from Overdrive Marketplace and import them into the catalog several times a week. And they're not really they're not fully cataloged records. And because we contract with OCLC to get OCLC records, those usually arrive within a matter of days, and we'll overlay the placeholder records. And so usually we'll check this because we don't want to duplicate our authority work, like fix up the short record and then have it get replaced by an OCLC record and have to do that again. So does that make sense? And ODN is sort of shorthand for overdrive record number. So that's why it's called that. And then you can also exclude by format, particularly like, oh, maybe we've gotten a whole bunch of streaming things, and we might consider, oh, that's kind of ephemeral. We might not want to put a lot of authority work, sorry, Kelly, in those. Or we've gotten a big batch of, I don't know, e-magazine records, which really don't even have authorities in them. And so I tend not to exclude anything when I run the report, but you can do it. And so then, yeah, the next thing I would do after I've figured out what I want to exclude, if anything, I'd set my date and then click go. So I'm going to just show you how this works. Click go, and then I'm going to wait maybe 30 seconds or more for it to run, which could be kind of like dead air time for you all. So I'm going to switch over to one that I already ran. Okay. So this is what it will end up looking like. And it's so beautiful. And I love this report, and I'm so happy that we built it. And you know, anything that we asked, Bill was able to accomplish for us. So kind of starting with like the top line. So the previous heading in this first one is for Abe, Jun, and it's the source of that heading is in a bibliographic record. And the next one is also the source is a bibliographic record for Abe Junko. And then I'm looking at the new heading, which is Abe Jun, and then 1972. And what had me kind of interested in is the previous one that doesn't have the date. So I'm going to, you know, go and do a search in OCLC to see like which of these headings is actually true. And I've already done this search. I don't see one for just plain JUN, except for linguist. That's probably not the one I'm looking for. When I open this one, I see it's Alice in Wonderland. I don't even need to go any further actually in this report, but I probably can, just to confirm that that is the heading for this person. And since the title is Disney manga Alice in Wonderland, I know that's probably the same person. And then what I'll want to do is search maybe on this previous heading and update it, because I suspect that that is also actually what I'm going to do here instead. I'm going to click on that and do an author browse. And again, this is going to take a few seconds to run. And there are my headings. And I can go in here and that, and I can see that, yes. And these are some ebook records, probably from OCLC. And I can just go in and edit this really quickly. Let's go into text and add. And so this is, you know, really quickly kind of how we use the new headings report. And maybe going back through some of these headings. We can click on the bib record itself, which is wonderful. Now that we have browser client, it just makes that so I'm just right in the record and where I want to be. If I needed to fix this heading. And next line, I can see that I was the last editor in this record. There was something that I had fixed in it. I can see, you know, what field is the 1XX field. I can see the title, 245, and I can see the format, and this is an ebook. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Or I can just continue. The next one is also, it's from an online record, probably from Serial Solutions. And so I'm going to search. Again, I can see that this previous one is from the source is from an authority record, from a 400 field. And the next one is also from an authority record, from a 100 field. So you can kind of see where they are, where they fall in the index. So I can copy this name and then do a browse search, and whether it's probably maybe a corporate conference name. I don't think I see anything. Is that a close match? Maybe not. But anyway, I can.
That's a tough example, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, and that was a yes, corporate author, and again another corporate author, and here is a heading from a title that I cataloged. I can also just copy from here instead of going into the details page, and again doing a browse search, and it's a personal name, and I can just click there and there, and I can see that this is indeed the right person. Back.
I have two questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
One is, if we go starting kind of at the beginning of this report, the results that you're getting on this report are because you've cataloged new records and they've run through the whole linking and they've looked for authority records and there just wasn't one there. Is that why these results are showing on this new headings report?
They're just we don't have the overnight linking happening.
Okay.
It's just something that appears to be new. So like in this first record, we had two headings for Abed Jun, and I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly, in the catalog. And then we got a new record that came in and it had the date 1972. And so this is actually new to our catalog. It just said, we've never seen this before, and put it on the report. And this is modeled on what we had in Millennium, an innovative catalog years and years ago before Evergreen. And we kind of missed it. So we put in a development request to get something like it, but this is worlds better than what we had with Millennium because of the linking, and it's just so much more interactive, and the way we can exclude things. Anyway, so I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So it's new headings in that it's not necessarily looking to see what linked and then what fell out. It's more, I'm probably oversimplifying this to say, okay, we've looked at the heading, an authorized heading that's on the record you're bringing in, and it doesn't match anything that's there already. So it looks like it's a new heading.
Right.
that fair?
Okay. You got it right.
Okay.
Right in one.
Perfect.
And then we can see where it is in the index. So we can see close matches like this first example is just perfect. The new heading is fine, but the previous headings that were in there need to be updated. And so we can really see places where we can do cleanup. And it's generally in our electronic resources records because we get those in fairly large batches instead of doing, the daily cataloging in physical formats where we have the item in hand, we're doing them one at a time and we're checking the authorities as we go.
Sure. And I guess my second question is not so much a question as a statement that even if libraries don't have OCLC, you can do this same process by just going to the Library of Congress Authorities records, right?
Yes.
And doing the search there.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Does anyone else have any questions about this? I can kind of just show you my whole workflow, but that might get kind of boring after a while. It's fairly repetitive.
Well, Sharon has a question, and it's like as many authorities' questions. Some of them are just questions that we'll figure out when we do. But Sharon's question: how are you finding blind references in Evergreen?
Well, we don't really have a report for that. I mean, this kind of helps us in terms of like, say in this heading here for Armstrong Gale, and then we have the next heading in the index is Armstrong Gale paper sculptor, and that's coming from a bibliographic record and not a authority record. So you could kind of say this might be blind.
Yeah.
So we can search OCLC and see if there's something that we could get. Paper sculptor. All right. So maybe we don't yet have an authority record for this person. And maybe this record's going to go out to Backstage for updating. Let's go ahead and take a look at that particular record.
And how often do you send to Backstage?
We send our bib records out every quarter.
Okay.
And then they process things and
and then send you a new file.
And then they send us, yes, a new files of authority records. And then Bill loads them. Bill does all this and for us. Maybe this is even the wrong authority on this record. Paper sculptor. Nope. I think it's probably the right person. She's using ingenious paper cutouts. That makes me think paper sculptor is correct. Oh, and there is an authority record in there because it is linked. And I did this record.
Good job, you.
So yeah, I don't know why it didn't show up on the report as an authority record, except maybe it just in the way it's filing, it's just the authority record would be the next, maybe the next heading.
Yeah, the sorting is
bibliographic record. But that would be one way of finding them, finding blind references. But it would be kind of hit or miss. You wouldn't find all of them.
That's a good question, though. Let's see if we have any more questions before we ask Bill how he made this work. See any more in the chat? So maybe the segue here then is, Libby, as I understand it, there's a new field in the database that enables this to happen. The catalogers, I don't know, how does that happen? Is it a cataloging date? I know we've had this conversation. I simply don't couldn't find
date. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so yes, cataloging date does make things happen. Let's go back to this record and I'll show you. So in the record summary, you can actually see this field called cataloging date. So we know when it was cataloged, we know when it was created, we know the last edit date. And this was also something that we had in Millennium. It was actually a required field. So we always had that so we could report on it. And when we would send out records for authority control, we would use this date to say, once the cataloging date has been set, it means that somebody's assigned the permanent call number to it, and the record is probably as good as it's going to get. And so it's good to send it off to Backstage because we're not going to probably update that record while the records are out for processing. And usually that's just I don't know, back in the day, I think it was just a few days. I don't know how long they're out now, but it's probably not very long. I think the turnaround is pretty quick.
So the cataloging date gets updated. It means that somebody's assigned a permanent call number and it's probably as good as it's going to get. So that means the cataloger who makes that determination updates that cataloging date?
And then here it is in our, so I bring in a record from OCLC and before I save it, I mean, of course, I'm going to double check the record to make sure it's good.
Sure.
And then if this didn't have a cataloging date yet, I would click apply date. And it's always going to be the current date, but I could also change it if I wanted to. Maybe there was a delay and I'm like, oh no, really, I cataloged this yesterday and I'm just getting around to it today. I can change that date. I can also clear it and then reset it. Yeah. And then, I mean, this is kind of, this is how we did this before we had the cataloging date. We add this field, this 915 field, with our cataloging initials. So these are mine, LMC for L McLean, and the date I assigned the call number and brought that record in from OCLC. And so we could run reports on this date that we'd use for what we call our QC reports, where we go in and that's a report that's actually on Power BI now, that basically we use to check call numbers and other fields. So we're still doing this. We're still adding the 915 field because it is just a nice reportable field. And then you can look at it and say, oh, okay, you know, you catalog this and you assign this call number and it's wrong. What were you thinking? And it's like, what was your decision making on this? And you can say, oh, well, I don't know. I was just having a mental moment. Or, you know.
An accountability stamp right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Nice.
that's how we use the
That's how it works.
cataloging date and how we assign it. And
Yeah, I like
it's
that.
very nice.
We're getting a couple of comments that agree that that would be very nice. And you answered the question about how it's set. Okay. So, Bill, you added a cataloging date to the catalog. What else did it take? What else did you need before you were able to give this kind of report back so that they could work with it?
There's also a date field, a new date field. So all of this data comes out of Evergreen's kind of core browse. What is it? Browse entry? Yeah, the browse entry table, which contains headings from bibs and all and authorities all kind of plopped into one thing. So I added a create date to that as well. And the reason we do that is the report shows you headings where either the cataloging date or the create date is greater and the cataloging date is set. And it kind of solves problems where you have browse entries that are linked to only records that are not considered high quality yet, or they're linked to multiple ones, and we don't want to see the same heading multiple times. So we kind of have to have those two dates there to figure all that out. And if we didn't use cataloging date in the community version, there's probably some other ways we could do it. I think cataloging date works pretty well. And then as far as other code level things, some of the things in the interface, like the format selector, that would have to change a little bit because that's pulling from another custom field we call mat type, but we could change it to like a search format or one of the coded value map entries in Evergreen. There's a lot of options for that. But that's really about it. There isn't a ton of custom changes at the lower level. It's just mostly a couple of two date fields, a couple of database views to collect the data. We for a while we were doing a materialized view to speed it up, but catalogers decided they were fine with it running a little slower as long as it was pulling in perfectly real-time data. And then also, I guess if we did want to bring cat date into Evergreen proper, then there's the entry input in the mark editor there, and probably some other places where it might want to be, where it might want it to bubble up. But yeah, that's about it.
Fiercely taking notes. Okay.
Sorry, I can repeat anything if
That's okay.
I was.
You're recorded too, so
Okay.
I'm still old school taking notes, and I don't need to. Okay. As I was fiercely taking notes. I've got tiny little questions, none of them necessarily important right now. Anybody else have questions? Because the obvious question is what does it take to get into the community, which we as a group have talked about this process over and over for the last few years. I mean, it takes a few things. I mean, what's the development like? I mean, how much of a lift is it to get it in there? One of the questions I have here, and Mike's here too, is I know, actually, let me back up, Bill. Is there a Launchpad ticket already about this particular thing, or would it need to be created so that we could start discussions?
I do not think there is. I think all I have is an internal note to myself to clean the code up.
Okay. And it feels like that's a good thing to do before we do a Launchpad ticket. Okay. Cart and horse situation. Okay. So I was going to say my colleagues are here. Several of my colleagues are here too, and well, a lot of you that work with EC, got several people from ECDI here too. So, what is the logical next step to continue this conversation then about possibly moving what you're doing and is being so well received in the cataloging community there in King County into the community? Where do we go from here?
Well, I agree. Getting a bug is a good first place. That's never a bad idea.
Okay.
And then I think the next steps would be to have some discussion around the date situation. If we want to have some type of cataloging date or base it on some other kind of date, that's really the crux of it. Once that's decided, the rest is, I think, probably pretty straightforward.
Okay. And to oversimplify things, realizing I am doing that, I want to acknowledge that. But once we have that conversation about the discussion, and I'm seeing some initial reaction here that people like the idea of a cataloging date in general, because we can all immediately think of lots of different ways we would use that. But once we have that conversation, when you say then that once that decision's made, it's really not, I'm now putting words in your mouth, not that big of a deal to move it over to community. Does that mean you, my friend, or does that mean that it really needs to go back and let's see if if this is the kind of thing that's a development project that we'd have to look for more coordination on?
No, let's just assume we went with cataloging date for the simplicity of the discussion. It's one Angular interface, which is about 4 or 5 files that I could almost copy directly into place. 2 database views and a database update, and then possibly some stuff around the cataloging date. But no, I can take care of that and have something polished off and ready to give to the community by myself. And then it would need, review and all of that good stuff.
I love that answer, Bill, so very much. I really do.
I'm going to add to that just because I'm looking at a bunch of releases upcoming, and this looks great. That is, I mean, it sounds like that's going to be a pretty straightforward-ish decision. And as long as there's a Launchpad ticket that's got the correct tags on it and things, so that gets flagged for a little bit more testing outside, it should not be that heavy of a lift. The only question I do have is what is the status of documentation that goes along with this? And this is just an administration kind of question. Is there any? And if not, that is a great thing too for y'all to consider as a collaborative piece for that to do documentation for it. And
excellent point,
Mike. Yes.
Okay, so I'm not reading the Yao statement right now, and we have the authorities working group who's just anxious to do documentation of any kind. I say almost sarcastically, but not really. We really are. So you've got a nice group while testing, to document at the same time how it's being used. And Libby, you've done a great job demoing it today. I really appreciate it. So I think we could really take what you've got and contribute the documentation from there.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen now unless somebody else wants to see something else.
Okay.
Okay.
And Ruth says 314 is not out of the question for this. That was going to be my next question, Ruth. Thanks. Recognizing that it should not take priority over anything else that's already out there being reviewed, but 314 sounds nice. And we're still talking about a 3.14. I like it. Okay. Now I'm going to read the yes statement to myself silently at first.
While she's reading that to herself, Bill, is this in your plans for 314?
Yeah, that's I don't think getting the code available is going to be a particularly big project on my end, so I can slot it in for whatever release we think makes sense.
Mike,
sorry.
Go ahead.
Just reading Mike's comment. Yeah, there's a lot of flexible ways we could present different filters. Yeah, so we could have some settings to queue that up.
All the filters are bibliographic filters though, right, Bill?
Yes. It does, and that is a core part of this, which I don't know if we really said it earlier, but a new heading in this context has to be attached to a bib record of a certain quality or whatever other criteria you're basing it on. It's not going to be something that's only attached to an authority record. Though we could add authority filters, that hasn't come up.
I could see dealing with only names or only subjects in a work session, but if your catalogers aren't asking for it,
don't put ideas in our heads, right? Yeah. I think the important thing is if it's attached to a bib. That's the only time, if we're cataloging for our users of libraries, that's when it matters. Is if it's attached to a bib.
Bill, is one of the goals ideally and eventually to have this drive the internal bib authority linking as well, so that I know there are pre-queued ingest large authority propagation updates are not tenable. So I realize most sites have that turned off except for the overnight processes. But it is the hope at KCS that eventually all the records will be properly internally linked, so that changes to the authorities as they happen will propagate out, so that it's just brand new record cleanup essentially, or that's the vast majority of what's going on in this interface.
I think that may be slightly more of a question for Libby. I mean, at this point, it's basically just a report, and what our cataloging staff do with it, I'm not always fully aware of, to be honest. Um,
Yeah, I don't know. I think we probably would like to have either overnight linking or I don't know, some way of choosing records to be linked. But yeah, right now it seems like they're going to go out. They go out for authority control and come back, and at that point they get linked, unless we do manual linking ourselves. And so we always kind of want to maybe put eyes on the records before we do the linking. And so I don't know how comfortable I am with automated linking without seeing the records or having our authority vendor seeing the bib records.
Libby, I'm sorry, I may have confused things. Sorry, yes, a human, definitely the human process. Are you looking to drive the human process of KCLS catalogers confirming or adding linking?
Yeah.
Right there, like adding the subfield zeros effectively, either with the link tool and the enhanced one, or directly. Is that part of the long-term goal to have the bibs? That part is this part of a overall desire to have the bibs be linked to proper authority records, so that eventually you won't have to send them out en masse when it's just a single, perhaps heavily used, but single authority record update. You don't have to reprocess all of the records. You can just let that happen. Because if they're already linked, if a human, well, I guess what I mean is,
Yeah.
do you, in your workflow here, do you use this to add the authority record linking to the bibs that the report is saying, hey, you should look at this? It doesn't sound like that's part of your workflow, so I'll just set it aside. I don't mean to confuse things and pull us off. I'm just wondering, kind of, what long term will this be able to drive, broader authority linking processes? I know this is a specific tool for a particular workflow for newly cataloged records. I realize that. I don't want to put too much on your on this specific workflow. Looking for links out to other things though.
Yeah, I'm just not sure. I'm not sure how to think about that. So, I don't know is my answer. My final answer.
No, thank you for thinking about it. I thank you for taking the time. I'll sit back now, that I don't want to get too far on a tangent.
I appreciate the question, that Mike, because I think that is longer term, kind of where we want to go. We, meaning the authorities working group, as we start collecting the things that we would like for the group, what authorities to be able to do. Part of it is right now we want to be able to test that. Lord, you just said it. Queued ingest, so that we actually do have the ability to, if you change an authority record, that it will then overnight clean up all of the bib records that are attached to it. That's what's missing right now. And we just aren't there yet to be able to test that acute ingest. And so then I think maybe that's our first step. And then beyond that, if we have something like this tool, and then we could be able to link it to link it to the linking process. I think that sounds like a lovely future thing. But as far as this particular tool, I'm not yet familiar with workflows that, well, obviously, King County is the only workflow that's got this, because they're the only ones that have the report. But as far as being able to link to the others, I think that, yeah, maybe it's a like version 8 or 9 of this. Oh, yep. And it's time for, so thanks to all of you that are here, and then you have to run to IRC. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Well, everybody that's got to now run. I appreciate it very, very much. I'll follow up an email with the core people that will be moving this forward as I continue to nudge gently and politely and with great appreciation. Thank you so much. I will hang around for a few minutes if there's anything else anybody else wants to talk about, or if we have more questions, we want to bounce around for a few more minutes as people are making the transition to other interest groups. Libby, thank you so much for bringing this to us today.
Well, you're welcome. Anytime.
I am so impressed with the improvements. The very first time I saw this, you couldn't link to anything, and this is nice. I love that you all go, wonder if we could do this, and then it does that. So yeah, I think it's probably one of the best conversations we've had in a while about authorities, because you could just see the difference in the workflow that you were following as opposed to the theoretical if we could. So thanks. It was very, very helpful.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else before we stop recording and go our own ways? Okay. Well, I guess that just leaves me to say thank you so much. And we'll see you maybe see you during bug squashing week. If not, we'll see you in September. Stay safe. Have a good rest of the summer, all.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you. See ya.
Thank you.